Hello, and welcome once again to Lehto's Law. I'm Steve Lehto, attorney at law in the state of Michigan, where I've been practicing law now for over 24 years in the fields of consumer protection and lemon law. I'm a frequent writer for places like Opposite Lock and Jalopnik. I also write magazine articles, newspaper columns, and I've written 15 books. Today we're going to talk about the top 7 ways mechanics rip off consumers. I'm not saying all mechanics rip off all consumers. I'm just saying that if you're a consumer, these are the things you need to watch out for because some mechanics might do these things to you and they will harm you financially. Number 1, charging for unnecessary repairs. You bring your vehicle into a shop, you say, hey, it's doing something. They say, yep, we figured it out, we fixed it. They charge you, you get back in the car, you're driving down the road and it still does it. You turn around, you go back, you go, dude, it's still doing it. And they say, then I know what it is. It's this other thing. Let us fix that. I've heard stories that have done this 2, 3, 4 times, quite often under warranty. And you might say, well, Steve, that's not really a ripoff because it's being paid by warranty. Well, it's a waste of your time. You got to keep going back and dropping your car off. But I've had this happen to clients of mine who brought a vehicle in and they're paying out of their own pocket. And the mechanic is just simply fixing one thing at a time until eventually he gets it right. And interestingly enough, under Michigan law and in many states, it's illegal for a mechanic to charge for work that was unnecessary. So by definition, those earlier fixes that didn't fix, okay, that's a violation of the law, the Motor Vehicle Service and Repair Act. So fix, fail, repeat is a problem. So unnecessary repairs, they shouldn't be charging you for them, but they always do. Number 2, misdiagnosing something that is not faulty. It's extremely common. You bring a vehicle in for, say, a brake job or a transmission problem. They'll routinely say, oh, you need to have everything done. Your entire brake system's got to be replaced, or your entire transmission's got to be replaced. And they'll wind up replacing stuff that's not faulty. Now, if it's cheaper, if it's less expensive to replace the transmission than to rebuild it, then fine, you might do that. But the point is that quite often they'll say, well, we could do a $100 repair, but we could do a $200 repair and replace everything. So let's do that. And yeah, that benefits the shop, but it does not benefit you, and that's why it's a ripoff. And that's also a violation of the Motor Vehicle Service and Repair Act in Michigan, and it's a violation of the law in many states. Misdiagnosing something that is not faulty is a violation of the law. I know a lot of mechanics out there are saying, well, hey, once in a while you can't tell. That's fine, okay? There might be a case where, it's a judgment call on something and you don't know till you try. But we also know that there are mechanics out there who are either being sloppy, that is that they're simply just, scattergun repairing things, or there might be shops saying, hey, look, we can make more money this way. And they shouldn't be doing that. So misdiagnosing something that is not faulty is also a way a mechanic can rip you off. I have to put on the list these days, joyriding in your car. It's becoming more common that we see this in the news and on YouTube where people post videos of their cars going on joyrides without them behind the wheels because they dropped the vehicle off to have it worked on and it was there for a day or two and a mechanic got in the car or a porter got in the car or some other employee at the dealership jumped in the car and took it for a ride. And that, depending on what they've done with it, is probably illegal also. Now, don't get me wrong. If you brought your vehicle in and said, hey, it handles funny, and they've done a bunch of work on the suspension, they may have to drive it to find out if their repair worked. Okay, perfectly fine to test drive a car. Difference between test driving and joyriding. Joyriding is taking the vehicle out and just driving it around for the fun of it. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Okay. I saw a thing in the news not too long ago where a guy said he's out driving around one day while his car was at the shop and he saw his car at the Taco Bell drive-thru and he wasn't behind the wheel. I've got news for you. If you are in my car and you're supposed to be working on it and instead you're at the Taco Bell drive-thru and you're going to take Taco Bell products and put them in the passenger compartment of my car, you are causing irreparable harm to my car. Now that might just be me, but I think a lot of people agree with me. That's not why I dropped off my vehicle, okay? The mechanic in the dealership said in that case, well, he was test driving the car and just happened to be passing by a Taco Bell and just happened to be lunch. And that's how that happened, but of course, that's what they always say, okay? So they can test drive it, but they shouldn't joyride it. And I've had people who dropped their vehicle off and picked it back up and had 500 miles on it. Or, other things had happened to it where it obviously had been taken out for much, much longer than a test drive. And like I said, we're finding out more and more about this because people have things like, GoPro cameras or other recording devices that document where their car went while they weren't in it. And in fact, we all saw that funny footage of the mechanics who were actually abusing a guy's car and they didn't realize the microphone was turned on the dash cam and recorded it all. And of course, they got in trouble for that. But for every person that gets caught doing that, there are probably 100 more who didn't get caught. Number 4, overcharging for parts or labor. Nowadays, it's harder to get away with this, but they still try. So if you are going to bring your vehicle in and have a water pump replacement on it or an alternator replacement done on it, you can look it up yourself in a time and parts guide, because that's what the mechanic is supposed to use to determine what it's going to cost to replace an alternator or a water pump or what have you. So you can go to time and parts guide and say, on my make and model car, what does it take time-wise to replace a water pump? You can also then look up what a water pump costs. Now, the shop is allowed to mark up the cost of the water pump as long as it's not an insane markup. And it depends on what their hourly rate is for the time. But the point is that these things actually are real numbers. It's not just whatever the mechanic feels like doing. So an incompetent mechanic who takes twice as long to replace a water pump shouldn't be charging you twice as much to do it. And in fact, that's why time and parts guides exist. So when you walk into a shop and you're going to have a mechanic do work on your car, ask the mechanic what it's going to take, time-wise, dollar-wise, how long is it going to take, and what's it going to cost me. And a mechanic should be able to tell you to the penny, or very, very close, depending on the job, how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take. I'm not saying, by the way, that a mechanic is going to say, hey, it'll be done by 4:30 tomorrow and nail that. I'm simply saying a mechanic should be able to say, well, a water pump's an hour-long job. A water pump costs $100. Boom, my rate plus that, plus the shop fees, boom, here's what it's going to cost you. I would suggest to you that no matter what state you are in, you should follow the advice that is given by the state of Michigan, where there's a law called the Motor Vehicle Service and Repair Act that requires mechanics to give you a written estimate before the work starts. So if you ask a mechanic what's it going to take and how long it's going to take and what's it going to cost me, the mechanic should be able to tell you these things. And I'd see if you can get it in writing. And if a mechanic won't give you that in writing, you might want to go someplace else. In Michigan, they have to. By law, they've got to give it to you in writing. Say, here's what it's going to cost you. And they have you sign it. And then when you're done, they give you a receipt saying, here's what it cost you, and they have you sign that too. And the point is that in the old days, you used to bring your car into the shop, and some guy'd walk out and go, yep, drop it off, we'll let you know. And you go to pick it up, and he's, $500. And you say, for what? He says, we fixed your car, $500. And if you don't pay it, they keep your car because they have a mechanic's lien on it. So the lawmakers in Lansing at least decided, you know something? If you get a lien on my car, before you do the work, you got to tell me what you're going to do. So that's a Motor Vehicle Service and Repair Act in Michigan, but it also, like I said, has counterparts in other states. Now, another way that mechanics can rip you off is by damaging your car while they have it. You drop your car off, they're going to work on your car, they work on your car, you go pick it up, and there's been damage done to it. I hear stories about grease spots on seats, but I've also heard about body damage. And other things that are broken. And I've heard of somebody said, yeah, I brought the car and had one thing fixed and they broke something else. And so if it gets damaged while it's in their possession, it's on them. And I've had a lot of times where people say, well, I went in to pick my vehicle up. It had a dent in the side, and they said, well, call your insurance company. No. You tell them, call your insurance company. That's why they have insurance. There's a thing called garage keeper liability in Michigan, but it also exists in many other states, that says that if you drop your vehicle off, you have somebody work on it, and they're working on it for pay. While it's in their possession, it's their job to take care of it. They're the custodian of your property. And if anything bad happens to it while it's in their possession, whether or not it's their fault, it's presumed to be their fault. So I've had people say, well, we don't know how it got damaged. Prove it. Well, it doesn't matter. It was in your possession. It got damaged. It's on you. So damage that occurs to your car while it's in their possession is on them. The biggest disputes that are hardest to settle in this arena are when people take in an older vehicle that's got a bunch of damage to it already. And they say, I picked it up and the guy put 2 more dents in my car, but it already had 7 dents in it. Okay. And I don't know how you're going to prove that. Yeah, that's your word against theirs. But I've had people tell me, the guy admitted that they went in there and they caused some damage and basically said, no, just call your insurance company. So you have to remember, no, that's on them, garage keeper liability. The 6th way that a mechanic might rip you off is by stealing from your car. And I kid you not, I've had it happen to me, I've had it happen to my clients, and I've sued car dealerships over things stolen from vehicles. You might say, Steve, you filed a lawsuit over that? I had a client who dropped his vehicle off to have some work done on it. It was going to take a little bit of time. It was under warranty. And while the vehicle was parked behind the dealership, Somebody went into the car with a crowbar and pried out my client's stereo. Client goes to pick his vehicle up and they say, hey, you've got a problem. Someone stole your stereo. Call your insurance company. My client calls me and said, do I need to call my insurance company? I said, no. I said, you tell them to call their insurance company. He said, well, I tried that and they told me to take a flying leap. And I said, well, the response to someone who tells you to take a flying leap when you're correct is to sue them, which we did, and they wound up paying for my client's stereo. I've heard of money stolen from vehicles. I've heard of wallets stolen. And what's funny is I've talked about this on the internet, and I've had mechanics chime in. They say, well, you shouldn't leave your wallet in the car. Yeah, you shouldn't, but you shouldn't steal the client's wallet either. Every couple of years, there's a news station in Detroit that would run cars through car washes where you get out of your car and you walk down the line and you watch your car go through. And when you get out of your car, someone else jumps in to vacuum out the inside while you're walking down the line. And these guys routinely just jump in the car and just steal everything. So the news station would just mount a camera up on the roof on the inside by the dome light and just film all these guys just ripping off, stealing all kinds of stuff out of the cars. And when they showed the footage to the owner of the car wash, the guy's like, well, you shouldn't leave valuables in your car. It's like, wait, I can't leave valuables in my car for 30 seconds? Your guys, that's their bonus. That's their bonus system. They just figure, hey, as part of the job, I can just take whatever I can steal. Okay, now I understand those aren't mechanics, but the point is it's very similar. If you've got my car and you find something valuable in it, don't steal it. Okay, that's against the law. Okay, so stealing from your car, it happens all the time. And by the way, garage keeper liability applies here as well. So if you've got something valuable in your car and they've got it and it disappears, and they say, well, we don't know what happened to it. It was there, but it's not there anymore. But we don't know what happened. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's presumed that it happened under their watch. It's their problem. They are liable for that under garage keeper liability. And then finally on the list, and this is my favorite, and I wrote an entire article about this one time, and I got a lot of hate mail about it because I had mechanics who swore to me that I was 100% wrong in this, that this is absolutely true, they can do this. I assure you they can't. It's the I can't let you leave brake scam. And it's often brakes, but it could be something else, I suppose tires. But I've heard this story so many times. When I wrote the article, I had so many people chime in and go, that has happened to me. You're driving down the road one day and your brakes start making noise, okay? So you pull into a brake shop. You've never been there before, you pull into a brake shop and the guy goes, yeah, sure, we have a free inspection. We'll bring it in, we'll put it up on the hoist. They bring it in, put it up on the hoist, knock the wheels off of it, and the guy comes out with a very solemn looking, funeral director's composure, and he says, I've got bad news for you. You need to have a complete brake job done, pads, rotors, drums, gonkulators, everything. Master cylinder, got to bleed the system. Probably have to bring in a priest and have him bless the car afterwards, but no, it's completely bad. Very, very bad. Whole brake system's shot. It's got to be replaced. And you think to yourself, wait, it was driving fine 5 minutes ago. It was just making a little bit of noise, okay? Maybe I should go get a second opinion. So you know something? You tell the guy, I'm going to take it out and get a second opinion. He says, you know something? That's a problem. I can't let you do that. And you say, what do you mean you can't let me do that? And he says, it's against the law for me to let you to drive this vehicle. If you were to go out right now and kill somebody, I'd get sued. Or the alternative they say is, if you were to go out and kill somebody right now, I'd get arrested. So I can't let you leave in this vehicle. Now, there's no such law anywhere. I challenged mechanics on Jalopnik to find me a law. Any law in any of the 50 states, I'd also accept Puerto Rico or Guam, if you can find me a law that says specifically, you, the mechanic, are hereby deputized to take unsafe cars off the road and forbid someone to leave your premises in an attempt to protect them and the rest of the driving public. You can do that. In fact, you're ordered to do that. You are liable if you fail to do that. You'll go to jail if you fail to do that. And I had so many mechanics who were saying things like, well, I can make a citizen's arrest. It's like, oh, dude, trust me. If I bring my car into your shop complaining of brake noise and you, quote unquote, make a citizen's arrest of me, I will own your brake shop. I'll probably also own your home. I might even own several of your children if I want them, okay? But you are not going to make a citizen's arrest of me because I want to leave your brake shop, okay? Actually, I think 2 people suggested that. And what's funny is I had several mechanics who chimed in and said, yeah, we tell people this all the time because it's the law. And I said, well, where's the law? And those of you on YouTube who are watching know that the blue book's right behind me, right here. Those are law books. And if I duck, there's actually a complete set of Michigan law books behind me. The entire law of the state of Michigan is contained in those law books on that one shelf. That's a compiled Laws of Michigan condensed version, okay? Every single law in the state of Michigan is in those law books. So whenever I talk to somebody, if they ask me, what is the law on this? I will often say, well, you know, Michigan's lemon law is MCL 257-1401 et sec, which is Latin for and so on, okay? And they say, really, I don't think it says what you think it says. And I will grab the book right here, open it up, and show them 257 is the motor vehicle code, and 257-1401 is the lemon law. 1301 is the Motor Vehicle Service and Repair Act, and so on, okay? The laws are written down places. The laws are not imaginary. They're floating around in outer space. They aren't whatever a judge says they are. They aren't whatever the news people say they are. And they aren't what a mechanic tells you, okay? So the law is written down someplace. And if you think there's a law that says that you as a mechanic are empowered to stop somebody from leaving your facility because you have deemed their brakes unsafe, even though they drove in that vehicle, please send me a copy of the statute. Give me the citation so I can look it up, and I will apologize to you on the next episode of Lehto's Law. You can email me at lehto@kennon.com, Lehto@kennon, KENNON.com. The law does not exist. Those laws do not exist. So when the mechanic tells you, I can't let you leave, call the police. Call the police and say, I drove in here, that's my car, guy won't let me have my car. I think he's trying to steal it from me. And a police officer will show up and say, what's going on? And then, of course, at that point, the guy's going to change his tune. He's not going to say, I didn't tell him they couldn't leave. He's going to say, I have a mechanic's lien on it because I did an inspection and they refused to pay for my inspection. Okay? They will never admit to the police, this car's unsafe, and I told them it's the law, they can't leave. Because the cop is going to say, what law are you talking about? Are you insane? Put the car back together again and give them their keys. Now, I've had 1 or 2 mechanics who chimed in and said, well, I've done this kind of because the car really was unsafe, and I told them they could have the car towed someplace else, but they couldn't leave with it driving away. And I'm like, they drove in with it. Think about this. Which is more dangerous, them driving onto your lot with no brakes or them driving off your lot with no brakes? At least when they drive off your lot, they'll leave. If they're driving into your lot with no brakes and the brakes failed, they would have hit something on your lot, which they didn't do, okay? So that's nonsense. So the I can't let you leave brake scam, to me, is the #1 ripoff. It's not the one that happens the most often, but I hear about it all the time. So those are the top 7 ways mechanics can rip off consumers. Watch out for them. And if you know of any others or if it's happened to you, feel free to email me and tell me about it. I love hearing the stories from people. Check out my website, lehtoslaw.com, LEHTOSLAW.com. I'm on Twitter at Steve Lehto, at STEVELEHTO. And this show is on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Podbean, Google Play, and YouTube. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye-bye.